Well, to honor this recent jump in silver price, I decided to bust out an actual authentic Comex bar from the Rothschilds in 1935. This thing's actually dated 1935, if you can believe it. Over 1,000 troy ounces of silver here. I felt like, good way to honor this little jump over 23 an ounce. Got a lot of charts, got a lot of information over here on the left. We're going to go to my screen in a second here, but I want to kind of give my rough thoughts of what's going on before we go into the actual gritty details here. I think it's more of right now, it's kind of like a hold time to kind of figure out what's going on with the market here. Because there's some signs that are showing me that we're seeing a bit of a detachment with silver, which is nice to see. But at the same time, we're also seeing other stuff go up as well. Today was a little bit different. So if you remember back, I believe it was Thursday, we saw everything just jumping up on the Fed's news, which is basically kind of the news that I got from the Fed is in a way that they are signaling that they might pivot, or that they're going to slow things down a little bit at least. And if they do that, that's going to show a weakness in the dollar. So why is silver up at 23 an ounce right now? I think it's really comes down to the DXY. And we've been talking about the DXY, which is the dollar index, for a very long time on the channel. And really, we're seeing an insane correlation when it comes to the drop of the DXY and the jump in the price of precious metals, specifically silver, because it was so undervalued that silver's actually the only one today. Silver's up 40 cents today, whereas gold is actually down $5.25 today. So silver's actually jumping even more so, which is probably due to the rising demand in silver when it comes to the industrial aspect of the metal. So there's more people holding silver as an investment, and there is a jump in industrial demand for silver. So the demand for silver is up. I believe it's up around 16%. I'm going to go over the actual chart in this video as well. But the first thing I think is the Fed's stance that they might pivot. If they pivot, that's going to tell the world like, hey, the dollar's probably going to start loosening up again, and it's not going to be as strong. I don't think the dollar was strong in the first place, but it's going to make it show some sign of weakness. If the Fed is raising rates, it shows everyone, oh, they're taking things serious over there. The dollar is going to get stronger. So as the Fed continued to raise, we saw a DXY climb, and then recently we saw the DXY fall back quite a bit, which is why we saw metals start to jump up. So I want to go over the charts over here in a second. Go over here. All right, so this is the recent jump we saw in silver. So let's go to the 5-day and just show. Let me move me out of the way here. You put me in the bottom right. There we go. So as you can see, we saw over the last 5 days, just literally 5 days ago, this is Monday's open. Open on Monday, we saw silver down at $20.80. It's crazy to think about it from this way, but I literally, this bar on Monday, if we're just talking about the silver value, not the premium for the fact that it's a rare bar, but just the silver value of this bar on Monday was a little bit over 20 grand, right? If this is just 1,000, it's actually almost 1,050, but we'll say it's 1,000 ounces. So let's say it's 1,000. This bar was worth $20,800 on Monday, just melt price, right? And then today it's up a bit over, like, say, this bar in the last 5 days has gone up, just its silver value. This bar sitting on my desk over the last 5 days has gone up over $2,000 in melt value. That's kind of crazy to think about. Like, this bar just sitting there didn't change the weight, just was the same bar, grew over $2,000 in value, quite a bit more than $2,000 in the last 5 days. So that kind of puts some perspective on how big of a jump we saw in silver over the last 5-day period. Pretty hefty gain. Pretty hefty gain. And what's crazy is silver's so undervalued right now in the first place that it's like, to me, it's not really that impressive to see it at 23. I'm still looking at it skeptical. Like, wait a minute, it should be 50 right now. It should be 60 right now. More than that. We literally should be seeing triple-digit silver. We sort of saw that a year ago. So that's why I titled this video as the silver squeeze back on, because I want to talk about some more details on why, things could be different this time around. But also, I want to kind of go over the actual details with the DXY as well. So if we look at the DXY, we saw, let's pull this back 6 months. So the DXY, just to show you how correlated the DXY is to silver, which is the dollar index, DXY peaked at just under 115, right? So let's go to this exact period in silver's timeline. So if I'm correct, that means when the DXY is up at almost 115, we're going to see silver very low at the same time period. So this is September 28th, right? So let's go back to September 28th. If you see at the bottom of the screen right there, you'll see September 28th. Let's go down to that here. September 28th in silver. The exact time that we saw that strength, literally, you see this huge drop down. That's when we saw the DXY getting up there. We go to September 28th, exactly on the dot, and you see silver at $18 an ounce. So that just shows you how correlated the DXY is to the price of silver, and it should be. If the DXY is up, it means you can, buy more silver with your dollars because the dollars are artificially strong in that time period. So that was a great buying opportunity, and I think back in September we'd been talking about it quite a bit on the channel. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. You take that split second to do that right now. Bell afterwards, all of that, or don't. It's up to you. Would appreciate it if you did, though. So it's pretty crazy when you look at the correlation there. When we pull back exactly September 28th on the DXY and you show exactly September 28th, it's kind of crazy to see it, the actual chart like that. And then we can go back to the DXY and we see some drops in the DXY. The DXY has fallen from its highs. The DXY is from 115 down to 104. And, again, we have been talking about this on the channel quite a bit. So to see a 10-point drop in the DXY from its highs to where it is now, obviously you're going to see precious metals go up. I would argue that they were supposed to go up a lot more than they have. Off of a 10-point drop in the DXY, I would actually expect to see silver like over 30. So to be honest with you, I'm super bullish on silver right now. I think that it's extremely low personally with everything that's going on. That's quite a substantial pullback in the DXY. Now, when you pull the DXY back a year, you can see that there's still quite a bit of room to drop. And you pull back the 5-year, you see from the lows in 21 on the DXY, January of 21, you can see the DXY was down at 90. I see no reason why it can't get back to those levels again. So we might see it continue to plummet down, and say the DXY goes down to 100, then breaks under 100, goes to 95. What are you going to see? You're going to see gold and silver skyrocket. I think silver and platinum and palladium will probably jump at a faster rate than gold. I think that the industrial aspect of silver is wildly underestimated, that 50% of silver is literally used for just industry. So when you talk about the jump of people holding silver for just investment purposes now, which there's quite a bit of jumping with people that want to actually hold the brick in front of them, like I have here in this video, you can see that, it's just a matter of time really. But I wanted to go to show you the correlation here with the DXY. So you see the DXY fell down from its highs that we saw in September. See it down to where it is now. When you look at that drop, you literally can see an exact correlation with silver going up in that same time period. So if we'll pull back the 1 month chart here. So this is a 1 month chart. You go back to November, beginning of November here, and we'll go back to the beginning of November in the DXY. And you can literally see the beginning of the November, the DXY was at 113, and now it's down to 104. That same month period, you look at silver, the exact inverse of that chart. It's exactly in the opposite direction. So when people think, like what's the best thing to keep track of when it comes to precious metals, it's the DXY. The DXY and following the DXY made me a lot of money as in the bullion markets back when I would, study it every single day, and I still do. But, when you're trading in a large quantity, when you say, for example, this is some stuff that I wish I knew when I first started in bullion, but I'll give away a little tidbit here. If you see a day when the DXY is down tremendously, but silver hasn't done anything yet, that's a day to buy. My personal opinion, not financial advice, just my personal opinion on it. There's been some times when you see like the DXY down 80 cents, but then silver's flat. That just tells me that usually the next day you're going to see a jump. So that's when I would usually try to make a big buy wherever I could when I saw the DXY down. So that's actually some pretty good stuff to know right there. But let's go to the next stuff about Powell. So this is a little article here talking about what Powell had recently spoke about. So he's basically saying that they're going to start slowing things down a little bit, but I wanted to go there. I believe there's a little chart in one of these that I wanted to get to. Might not be in this one. Go. Here we go. So Jerome Powell confirmed Wednesday that smaller interest rate increases are likely ahead, even as he sees progress in the fight against inflation as largely inadequate. Now, I would agree with that largely inadequate part right there. I would agree with that. But the thing that people aren't taking into consideration is like they're celebrating right now. If back here, what's so ironic to me is like back in 2020 when it was down at 1% inflation, they would not be celebrating it being at 7.7%. And that's their crazy number. The real number is way higher than that, in my personal opinion. But it's like, it's funny to me how back here, they would be scared as can be if it was over 5% back here. But now, because it's down from 9.1% down to 7.7, they're celebrating over there. Oh, wow, we're winning. We're winning. Look at that. It's like, no, you're not. Anything over 4 or 5% is in very bad territory because this isn't really even showing the true inflation rate. It's using a hand-picked basket. You go over the true CPI numbers that we're supposed to use, it would show it well over, it would show, I mean, in my personal opinion, way over 15%. But I don't think that this is anything to celebrate about. If anything, I think it could possibly be just to current market conditions. You know, if you raise prices of your goods too much, people just aren't going to buy them. And so that might make it go down just based on that people are scared to buy stuff because the M2, they basically just want to sit on their money and they don't want to spend it. So that could be part of what's going on here. So people have to lower their prices just because people don't want to spend money right now. So to be competitive, people are going to probably lose on their profit margins just so they can stay competitive so people will continue to buy goods from them. There might be people out there, let's say hypothetically bread, for example, or just some random product. We'll just say bread, for example. Maybe some people that used to splurge and buy, a fancy bread, now they're not doing that anymore. So what does that fancy bread company have to do? They're going to have to drop their price from $10 down to $8 or whatever it is. And that's going to show that, oh, inflation's not as bad. No, it just means they're willing to take less profit so they can sell their bread. That's what I think is what's going to go on. So this figure is what I would go back to is largely inadequate. It doesn't make it, to me, it's a terrible inflation number. Seeing 7.7% inflation is terrible. Not only is it terrible, but the fact that the federal funds, they've already used their ammo. They're already raising it to a pretty high rate. They're up to 3.83%. And now they're talking about slowing things down. They're not talking about lowering the rate. They're talking about slowing things down. That's the difference here. So let me move myself out of the way. Again, so they're talking about doing a period of time where's a time where they kind of hovered it around. So like right here, you see how they just hovered the rate at 5-point-something% for a little while? They're talking about doing a slow hover period like that. They're not talking about dropping it like you saw in 2008 like that. They're just talking about hovering it up there for a while. And to me, that's still a big negative. That's still something that's just, they're basically reloading their ammo. And now what I think they're going to do is if they do pivot, which is what the market is kind of signaling towards, say they do pivot and they either slow down or they actually start going down and dropping the rates like you saw here, to me, that would make the DXY plummet. So that's a huge positive for precious metals. So if they actually turn around and they pivot, and they very well could, so say that we see a catastrophe happen, say we see, let's go to the S&P. So the S&P is actually looking to recover a little bit here, but not much from how much it's fallen. So when you look at the S&P, let's say the S&P starts plummeting and it goes down to 3,400 or something like that, and it just starts tanking, and we have a really terrible sell-off, kind of like we saw here at the beginning of the pandemic, but we see just a crazy catastrophe happening. What's the Fed going to do? It's really obvious. So you see the S&P fall, and we have a huge market correction. The S&P is going to turn around, and they're going to drop rates, just like we saw in 2008. So in 2008, 2009, in the middle of the recession, did they raise rates in a recession? We're in a recession right now, in my personal opinion. I think they're blatantly lying about that. My personal opinion, powers that be, my opinion. But we should be showing one of these gray periods, which is a recession. But do you ever see a recession where they're raising rates in a recession? No. The only time you see that is right here when they're not saying we're in a recession and they're raising rates into a recession. This is a one-time event. They've never done this before. You go back in time and you actually study this chart. God forbid Jerome Powell ever shows a chart like this when they're doing a press release. They won't actually show you this information, which is why you should click that subscribe button now, preferably not later, but probably now you should click the subscribe button somewhere because we're trying to grow the page a little bit. But when you look back, it's like, do you see a recession period where they're raising the rates? No. Recession, drop the rates. That's their tool. Their tool in the tool chest is pump money in the system, give away a bunch of free money to get us out of a recession. It's really that simple. You cause this big buildup. They raise the rates, raise the rates. They cause a recession. Markets are plummeting. Housing markets plummeting. What do? Give away a bunch of free money for 10 years. That's what they do. Give away a ton of free money. And look, at the longer it's been this low where they were just giving away free money, people in the real estate industry were bankrolling from 2009 to 2015, just bankroll period time to be in real estate. Why are people's parents' houses all of a sudden worth millions of dollars? Because of this, because of all of this free money they gave out. And it's going to make it harder for people like me and the more of the younger crowd to actually buy a house because the rates are going to be high again. And then at the same time, the market is way overvalued right now as real estate. But I'll digress on that. But the point is their tool to get them out of a recession is to drop the federal funds rate. Now, in these periods of time, when they drop that rate down, that means they're going to have a weak dollar. If you're giving away something super easy, is that going to make it more valuable? No. If you're tight with something, then people are going to treat your product with more value to it because you're tight with it. But when they're loose with the dollar and they're like, hey, here's a bunch of free money, everybody, you can get a loan at 0%, 0%, 0%. When they do that, the dollar loses its power, loses, its dominance. So when you see what they're doing here, they're raising rates into a recession. And then when they cause the recession, they're going to turn around and drop it. And they're going to basically, it's really this simple when it comes down to it. Maybe it's like a complex issue for Yellen or Powell to talk about things like this because it's one of their things that they're doing. But really is they're trying to distract. What I think is happening here is I think they're trying to distract the broad markets and not let them know, hey, we're adding to our tool chest here so that we can turn around and just plummet the rates back down and pivot. And when will they pivot? When they cause a market catastrophe. And the market is already wildly overvalued, so it's not a real long shot to think that this is going to continue to keep Wing downwards, make lower lows and keep going. The S&P, to me, I mean, back when the S&P was super high, I mean, I still thought it was really overvalued then. And here I still think it's extremely overvalued. I don't think price earnings ratios in this day and age should be, 50x plus. I just don't see it. So there's just so much overvalued companies right now that to me, it just seems like a matter of time before we see the market plummet. And so let's say the S&P starts plummeting, the Fed's going to turn around and drop the rates. And when they do that, it'll drop the DXY. So to me, I think it really is that simple. We can go back and actually show this play out by studying the history of it. But let's go back and see what happened to the DXY in 2009. I'm kind of curious. So if you see in 2009, the DXY went from 90 down to 70, 74, and this is at the same time period when they started dropping the rates. So if you see look at this chart with the DXY. So the DXY at its highs up here in 02 was up at 120 at one point. You saw an extremely strong dollar in 2002. But then you go back to that federal funds rate chart and you see when they started plummeting the cost of money. So look at how correlated is it? Look at this. This is 2000 here, and they started dropping the federal funds rate tremendously at that first recession in the 2001 recession. They go and they drop it down. And this is to get them out of that bad period. They drop it from 2000 down to, at one point, they had it under 1% in 2003, 2004. And what happens when you have it this low, when you're giving away money this cheap from 2003 to 2004, what do we see on the chart? From 2003, 2004, look what happened. The price of the dollar plummeted. The value of the dollar plummeted when they started giving away that free money. This is exactly that same time period. You see that. So that's the correlation that we're talking about here. If they're going to give away money for free like they did back there, and we can just study history to show exactly what we're talking about, which I think this is pretty great data to be looking at. It's very obvious. You give away a bunch of free money, well, the price of your dollar goes down. The dollar gets loose. I mean, you give away money loose, the value of that item goes loose. So it's that simple. So what will happen now is, I mean, this is a pretty sharp drawdown we're seeing here, but still a ton of room to fall in DXY. Not only is there a ton of room to fall, but the chain of events seems like it's going to progress that. So if they're going to turn around and pivot, I mean, they're raising rates into a recession, arguably. They're raising rates into a recession very, very fast. I think they're going to cause a recession. If they're not going to admit that they're in a recession right now, I think it's just a matter of time before we see a serious unfolding of what happens. And then what will they do? They'll turn around and they'll drop the rates like they did in 2009 and like they did at the beginning of the pandemic. They dropped it from 2.4 down to 0 again. And they gave away a bunch of free money in the beginning of 2020, March 2020, until January of 2022. They were giving away a bunch of free money, literally pretty much free money at that time. So it was great to be in real estate here. And what do we see? Spiking in real estate prices, overvalued real estate, all this stuff. And then now things are starting to get real. So people in real estate are starting to suffer now because they're raising rates, and they have to lock in at much higher prices now with their real estate loans with 30-year fixed rates. I don't even know why you would be in an adjustable rate loan right now, but they still have those too, because a lot of people didn't learn their lesson back in 2009 with that. But they're raising rates and they're going very fast at that. So what are they going to cause? In my opinion, they're going to cause a catastrophe. So there's that. And then there's also something else. This is a big wild card that not enough people are talking about, is the fact that the BRICS nations are getting stronger and stronger right now. And you basically, here's a crazy situation. The EAEU, which includes Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, I don't know how to pronounce that, and Russia, they're basically coming up with their own payment networks outside of SWIFT. And what's crazy and what's something that's not enough people are talking about is overnight, they could say that we're going to move towards a gold standard, or we're going to value silver and gold as money again. And that's our way to combat with the SWIFT network. What is a SWIFT network? The dollar, pretty much. So if you kick a country off of SWIFT, can you blame them for creating their own payment network? Now, not only that, will they back that payment network to gold to make it strong? And I can guarantee you this, the Saudis are going to love that idea. They're going to love the idea of a currency back to gold and being able to trade in gold again, because they like gold and they are the oil country. So it's like, okay, you got Russia and you got the Saudis, who are both oil-rich countries, mineral-rich countries, very wealthy countries, and they're basically teaming up in a trade. When you look at the BRICS nations, you got South Africa, you've got Russia, you have India, and you have China. It's a pretty powerful team that they're building over there, developing their own payment networks, and they've all been accumulating gold, and they all like gold. So that could be a wild card scenario that could just make precious metals absolutely skyrocket. And again, I don't see enough people talking about that. That's how that's just a wild card scenario. Now, will that happen? I'm not sure about it. I can't say anything with certainty in these videos, but I think it's something that more people should be drawing their attention towards, because again, we did weaponize the SWIFT network. So we basically kicked Russia off the SWIFT network. What are they going to do? They want to trade and they're kicked off of SWIFT. So they're probably going to start trading in their own network. And in that network, how do you establish, that it's a legitimate network? Probably back it to precious metals. It's really that simple. And who has a bunch of precious metals? Russia. A ton of precious metals. Who has a ton of precious metals? China. Who has a ton of precious metals? South Africa. Where do you mine a bunch of precious metals? Russia and South Africa. I mean, it just seems like the two of the most mineral-rich countries is literally Africa and Russia, and they're both in BRICS. That doesn't draw anyone to get concerned. Like, literally all of the platinum and palladium is pretty much from Russia and South Africa. Nobody else is concerned. Anyway, I digress. But the establishment of BRICS is something that I think more people need to be talking about. Now, this is a really interesting chart here that I wanted to bring up in this video, is the global silver demand. The Silver Institute predicts a 16% increase in demand this year to 1.21 billion ounces. And when you look at this chart here, what's interesting is you look at the industrial, this dark blue here, the navy blue, is actually the industrial aspect. And if you look at it over the years, industrial use of silver is growing year over year. You don't see too much from this chart, but I can assure you just these tiny little movements up in industrial use is quite a bit of silver. And the interesting aspect is up here, when you look at hedging and bars and coins, that is tremendously growing to where it was when you look back in like 2007, there, the rectangle there is growing huge when it comes to people wanting to hedge themselves and wanting to own it as an investment. So you see growth in both categories, both in industrial use, and you see growth when it comes to people wanting to hold silver, like I have this silver brick in front of me as investment. That's pretty insane to think about. When it comes to the solar panel market, auto manufacturers, things like that, they're going to be using a lot more silver. especially if you want to start making more electric cars, which Tesla doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. It's super interesting just how much is being used now and how it's continuing to grow now, and it's pretty much at all-time highs. The amount of silver stored in the vaults in London and New York, monitored by the COMEX Exchange and the London Bullion Market Association, has fallen by around 370 million ounces, or 25% this year. So you're going to start seeing, like, obviously this is going to be what's crazy to me is with all of this positive news, you should see silver's price, absolutely skyrocketing past prior all-time highs. It's crazy when you pull back the chart and you look at silver back from 2000 until now. I mean, why is there any reason why it shouldn't be past all-time highs? I see no reason at all why it shouldn't be back up there. So when I see this little jump here from 20 to 23, I get excited about it. Again, this bar went up over $2,000 in value in 5 days. Yeah, I like to make $2,000 on a bar sitting here. That's great. Especially when you consider my entire silver position, it's nice to see that. But really what it comes down to is when it comes to my core position myself, when I'm talking about my silver position, I look at it as I have custody of my money. And when you think of it from that perspective, the price swings, they don't feel as painful as you would think. It's something that I take pride that I own this. I own it. It's in my custody, and I don't have to beg anybody for my capital. I'm not really a fan of, powers that be, if that makes sense. I'm not a fan of somebody else holding my assets. The bankers, although they're cozying up to me recently, I still don't like them very much. I'll take their free money if they're going to give me free money like they did back when we pull back the charts, when we look at the federal funds rate chart. But at the end of the day, I take pride in having custody of my assets, which is why my business is around it, which is why I put my personal capital in that space. That's why I am a silver investor myself. But again, to me, it just seems like it's a matter of time before we see it really break out to the upside. And all of this news is it's crazy to me that it's not higher than it is already. So again, it's exciting to see this jump. Let's pull back to the 1 month. So the 1 month in silver, the low was at $18.80. That was a pretty good time to be buying right there in the teens. I think anytime you can get silver in the teens is pretty wild. So you look at the 3 month chart, the lowest it was in the 1777, 1775. That was the lowest we see in the last 3 months. We pull 6 months. The low of the last 6 months was 1750. So anything really in the teens was a hot place to be buying, as it would show. And this rise to the upside here, yeah, it's moving in the right direction, but I want to see more detachment days. So this closed today, Friday. We see what's nice to see about silver on this specific day is when you look at the S&P, it's flat. S&P is down $5. You look at like tech stocks, you look at Tesla flat, Apple flat, everything's flat, but then you see silver still going up a little bit. That's nice to see when silver's up 2% and everything else is flat. That's showing a little bit of a detachment. Now, at the beginning of the week, when we saw these first big jumps at the beginning of the week, where specifically on Wednesday, it looks like, when silver jumped up from 2150 to 2240, this jump here of about $1 that day, the broad market was up that day. So to me, that's not as impressive as seeing it detach on a day when the market's flat. We want to see more days when the stock market is flat or the stock market is down and silver is up on those days. That's a true, detachment from the overall market and showing silver is starting to actually show supreme to the other precious metals based on it going up when everything is flat. On a day like we saw today, that's interesting to see when the gold and silver ratio is tightening. Now, a lot of people have been, when we talk about the gold to silver ratio, a lot of people have been saying that, gold is going to go up and silver is going to have to catch up to gold to tighten that ratio. But interestingly, we might see gold start to go down and silver start to go up and it tightening in that way, because silver is just wildly over. I mean, gold is undervalued too, but the difference between gold and silver and why I like silver more than gold is great, but I like silver more because over 50% of it is industrial. So when we show that chart that I just pulled up, do you think gold looked like this? No. This little rectangle right here, pretty much half of the silver demand is industrial. Gold's industrial demand is like less than 10%. believe it's around like 5%, something like that. When you talk about the industrial demand of gold, nowhere near the industrial demand of silver. So that's why I'm much more bullish on silver than I am of gold. If I have to choose between the two, I'm choosing silver every time because, again, 50% of gold's market cap, that would mean like, $6 trillion of gold is going to be used by industry. No, it's not going to happen. So the industrial use of silver is wildly higher than gold, which is why I think we'll see silver jumping up faster than most people think. Um, but that is something I wanted to get into in this video, is to show just basically how much the demand is growing. This is the Silver Institute recent. They just dropped this on the 18th of November. They had talked about silver jewelry and physical investment both forecast to surge by 50 million ounces to record highs this year. This is actually a recent post by the Silver Institute. Silver demand is forecast to reach a record total in 2022, driven by new highs for industrial demand, jewelry and silverware offtake, and physical investment. I think the physical investment space is going to be growing tremendously. So it's a wild card to see both industrial and the physical investment part of silver growing at the same time. And you say these were some of the key findings reported by Philip Newman, managing director at Metals Focused, and Adam Webb, director of mine supply during the Silver Institute's interim silver market review in New York today, which featured historical supply and demand statistics and estimates for 2022. The following areas are key highlights in the presentation. Global silver demand is expected to reach a new high of 1.21 billion ounces in 2022, up by 16% from 2021. And then I believe it was up already 19% from 2020 to 2021. I think it was up 19%. Now it's up another 16%. So industrial demand is on course to grow to 539 million ounces. So of 1.21 billion ounces in 2022, 539 million ounces is for industrial demand. So roughly half of the silver demand is industrial, which is crazy to think about when it comes to how undervalued it is. Of course, they want it for cheaper because they're making products out of silver. So they want to keep the price low, but it can only last for so long. Developments such as ongoing vehicle electrification, despite sluggish vehicle sales, Tesla isn't showing sluggish vehicle sales. They're doing pretty well. So I'd imagine the electric car market continuing to grow. Growing adoption of the 5G technologies and government commitments to green infrastructure will have industrial demand overcome macroeconomic headwinds and weaker consumer electronics demand. Physical investment in 2022 is on track to jump by 18% to 329 million ounces. That's insane to think about. 18% jump in physical investment in silver is insane. 329 million ounces of 1.21 billion ounces of demand is just for investment of silver, and that's probably going to be tight hands, diamond hand holders of silver. To me, that's insane to think about. So there's industrial demand growing and the physical demand for actual holdings of the metal as an investment. It's interesting to see. And then also what's going to be very interesting is the demand that we're seeing from the industrial aspect. How many companies are going to start accumulating silver as both an investment and for industrial use? Why, if you have a product, and if we talked about this in the past, if you're like Tesla, if you have a product that uses a ton of silver, if you're in the solar panel industry and you use a ton of silver, why would you not accumulate silver while you can and put yourself in a strategic position ahead of your competitors? To me, I think that makes a ton of sense. If I was sitting with billions of dollars on my balance sheet and I'm looking at the dollar value probably going to start plummeting, we're seeing inflation, we see the dollar value plummeting, and I already need silver, I would be getting rid of the dollars and accumulating silver. I mean, you can hold it as an investment and industrial at the same time. So some of that is actually correlated to each other. Some of it is both. A lot of companies are probably accumulating silver literally as both an investment and for their products as well. So it's something to think about. When we go to the gold and silver ratio, when you saw the gold to silver ratio back in 2020 up at 115, that was a pretty good time to be considering silver as an investment. This is back when silver fell to like $11 an ounce. So with the gold to silver ratio, we're starting to see it peak back up at 95 and it's starting to tighten back up again. And we're seeing the gold to silver ratio just slightly under 80. So 77.65. I'm not sure if that's updated yet, but I don't have a calculator nearby. To get the gold to silver ratio, all you have to do is divide the price of gold by the price of silver. So it's probably pretty close to the right number here. 77.65 is the gold to silver ratio right now. So it's pretty great, pretty great news for silver all across the board. But the truth is, it's like we could see days where silver jumps, $4 or $5 in a day. Like we could see some crazy days in silver, and I think that there's going to be a time when people are going to look at it and go start scratching their heads and be like, "Wow, I can't believe I wasn't." They're just giving away silver at this time period. And back when it was down in the teens, I didn't think it was ever going to get to the teens, but the fact that it did, it's pretty wild to me. But this is pretty much all the information I wanted to go over in regards to what I think silver was going to, why I think this movement has happened in silver, and what I think could continue to happen with silver. Overall, I'm extremely bullish personally. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But let's get into some comments over here. I don't like missing any of the super chats. I don't think any of the super chats came in. Sometimes I'm rambling and I miss those. But if you're in here, I'd appreciate it if you smash the like button. If you could take, if you this information was valuable to you, if you learned something here that you might not have learned otherwise, if you smash the like button, I'd really appreciate it because it helps my videos get out there to more people. We're kind of plateauing a little bit on the channel. So I want to start growing the channel quite a bit. And if you could subscribe, hit the like button, really appreciate you doing that. Only if you got some value of it. Russia is the second biggest producer of platinum too. I'm really curious on the website. So if you're new to my channel, I own Mineral Exchange, which is an auction house for bullion and rare bullion and regular bullion as well. So we're going to start seeing what the true premiums are of things, but this is my auction house. And this week is like an intense week. So I have, when someone in the comments down there said platinum, we have a 10-ounce platinum bar on the website right now, which is pretty insane. Let me put myself in the corner here. This is the 10-ounce platinum bar that I have running right now with the buyer's premium. There's a 10% buyer's premium. I see 7,877. So it's still under melt even with the buyer's premium. So I'm kind of curious to see where platinum ends up because we're actually going to find out in real time what the true premium is on platinum right now. And we also have a super rare gold bar. It's really cool 100-ounce bar. So I'm hearing a lot of bullion dealers out there saying we're out of product. Mineral Exchange isn't out of product. You can go bid on it right now, and it ends on Sunday, every Sunday. So mineralexchange.com is my company. We have all these gold standard pieces, just some crazy stuff on the website right now. And also all the price data is given away for free. So if you're unfamiliar with it, check out you can go to here and you can actually click here and see the auction history and see all of the items we've sold in the past. All of it is given away for free. So you can get all that price data for free. We're not like WorthPoint or something like that where they charge you something to see the price history. So you can actually, and you can also use the search feature here. This is actually extremely cool where you can just search the website for any item that we've sold right on the top. So we're stoked to add that feature to the website. But a lot of cool stuff on the website. So we're going to see what the actual premiums are on a 100-ounce bar of silver. There's that 100-ounce bar. There's a Delta 100-ounce. There's this 10-ounce Platinum Johnson Matthey, which is insane. By the way, everything from me is guaranteed, and it is all XRF tested and Veriscan tested, both on every single item, so you know that you're getting the real deal. Ton of gold standard pieces, but I think we have, 100-ounce, a 50-ounce, a 50-ounce, another 50-ounce, another 50-ounce, another 50, another 100. So all kinds of silver, all kinds of precious metals on the website this week. So check that out. mineralexchange.com. If you're not registered to the website, what are you waiting for? But that is my way of knowing what the premiums are on metals right now in my business. If you're curious what I do for a living, mineralexchange.com is my company, and this is not a paid advertisement unless my company wants to start paying me some money. Maybe it will. I don't know, but it's not. But let's get to some comments here. Hang on. Go back. This bar right here, someone says, honestly, that bar is amazing. Like this right here, you might have been talking about the platinum bar that's on the website this week, but this Rothschild I'm extremely excited about. It was my lucky toad brought it, just hopped in here and just was like, here's a Rothschild Comex bar from 1935. Thanks, Toad. You don't know? Anyway, some people don't know the mascot. Actually, that's disrespectful. He's a boss. He's not the mascot. He's the boss around here. But platinum is like a Land Cruiser. Beat the crap out of it, and it will still start up and say, "Is that all you got?" It's true. Actually, let's look at platinum's chart really quick. Let's pull up platinum. Hang on. Platinum actually had, I believe it had a really, look at how much of a discount. It's insane to think platinum's only at $1,000 an ounce right now. But let me go to the last 5 days in platinum. Is that the 5-day chart? Yeah, that is. So platinum 5 days ago was at 970 On Monday, platinum was at 970, and now it's at 1015. So that is roughly, what is that? Almost 50 points up from its bottom. 970, 30, 45 off of its bottom 5 days ago. Platinum is up $45 on melt price from Monday until today. In 5 days, up 45 on platinum. That's pretty intense. That's pretty intense. Gave back 2.4% on the close today, so it gave back $25 today. But at one point, I mean, platinum had it's crazy to say that this is a 5-day chart on platinum. So at its peak, platinum was at over 1050 at its peak, and now it's pulled back from its peak. Crazy volatility for platinum. Crazy volatility to see this. That's wild to me. And then palladium, I think palladium's at an extreme discount because most of the world's palladium comes from Russia, and I'd imagine they're going to be more tight with their palladium. I'm still very bullish on palladium personally. But industrial precious metals, I think, is going to be where it's at. I really do. I've thought that since the very beginning, and I still think that now. Silver, platinum, and palladium, I think, is a great trade. Gold is going to be, I think gold is going to steadily go up, but I think that silver, platinum, and palladium are going to way outperform gold. That's just my personal opinion on it. But it's interesting to see how much volatility is going on in platinum right now. And I'm super interested to see the closing price on Mineral Exchange for that platinum 10-ounce bar. How many people are crazy enough to auction a 10-ounce platinum bar with no reserve? I mean, let's get real here. Like, that's pretty intense. That's kind of crazy to think about it. We have like a 6-ounce gold bar auctioning at no reserve, platinum 10-ounce, no reserve. All of it starts at 0 with no reserve. Pretty wild stuff going on mineralexchange.com. If you're not on my company's website, mineralexchange.com, it's free. You put in an email and verify an email. It's free to do. You get free price history. You can at least just watch it. If you don't want to participate, just watch and see all the cool stuff going up there. And know that I own 100% of it. I'm not like, shilling some company out there. This is my company. So I guess I'm technically, I'm selling out, but with my own company I own 100% of. So is that selling out because I didn't sell my company? I don't know. I own mineralexchange.com. I don't have to pay myself. This video is not a paid advertisement. But check it out, mineralexchange.com. And as we see the kind of detachment and what's going on, we're going to see with auctions like that, you're going to see what the true premium is of a silver bar. And I might throw up some stuff tomorrow. I might throw up some more stuff that ends in one day. It'll be interesting. Krieger's is pretty intense total. Yeah, it's fun to see. It's definitely, but the thing is, it's like, to me, in my mind, it's both a pause. Like, when you think about a reserve, it's not really an auction. If somebody puts a reserve on, and this is why I personally don't allow reserves. It's like, what is an auction if there's a reserve? It doesn't make sense. It's like a ceiling in a sense. It's like a floor and a ceiling at the same time. So I don't buy into that. So I basically just say no reserve. Palladium has already realized its industrial golden egg, which platinum has lost. Platinum can only move higher from here. Palladium, the difference, and I've made a video on this, so you can go back on my page. On here, you can go back on the page, and I've actually shown a video where I put side by side. So this is a platinum bar. I put a palladium bar side by side, a platinum bar, a 10-ounce palladium and a 10-ounce platinum bar side by side, and basically showed how much more dense the platinum is. So what does that mean? It's you get more bang for the buck with palladium. So although palladium is double the price of platinum, or actually like a little bit under double the price of platinum, you get double the product because it's not as dense as platinum. It's something that a lot of people don't think about. The reason why palladium is being used so much in industrial purposes is because you literally get double the same amount of material and it's easier to work with. Platinum is a really dense, hard metal to work with. And palladium does a lot of the same things, but you get, again, double the density. So you literally, the size of a 10-ounce palladium bar of the same dimensions would be double the width that you would see on this platinum. It's something that not enough people talk about, but if you go to, you go back on my channel and you see platinum, or just search, Rob Sultan platinum versus palladium, you'll see a video where I go in like very intense detail on the density difference between platinum and palladium. And it's something not enough people bring up with platinum. But I do, someone just says, I love platinum because it's a hard metal. I love platinum as well because the second if you hold a 10-ounce platinum bar, you know what you got in your hand. Like, you know what's there. It's like it'd be very. I could close. Someone could close. I could close my eyes, and someone could put a 10-ounce silver bar, a 10-ounce platinum bar, and a 10-ounce gold bar, and I would immediately know which was which. Especially with the platinum, because the platinum even over gold. So if you put a 10-ounce gold bar and a 10-ounce platinum bar, I'd immediately pick out the platinum one because it's so dense. It feels like an alien metal. It's a weird metal to feel. But yeah, platinum. I still think platinum is the rich man's gold in a sense. To me, it's kind of crazy that it's not worth more than gold. If you go back on the chart, actually, we'll show real quick. If you look at platinum versus gold, let's pull back the chart to all time. So platinum at its all time high was at $2,300 an ounce, and gold I don't think has ever been over 2,300 an ounce. Obviously, it's the highest gold got was at 1919. At the same time period when gold was at 19, a little bit over 1900, platinum was over 2,300 at one point. Like so, it's kind of crazy to see that platinum isn't higher than gold. I think platinum should have always been higher than gold. If you consider platinum right now, it's like it's almost being valued only for industrial purposes. But really, platinum makes a better money than gold, in my opinion. I mean, it's a extremely hard metal to fake. I've made a video on that as well, where I showed like how thin a 1 ounce platinum bar is, and how it's literally there's no metal on the planet that really can copy it, because metals that can copy it are too expensive to do that. There isn't like a tungsten for platinum. There's only a tungsten for gold. God was playing a funny trick when they created tungsten. It's exactly the same density as gold. I believe like 19.3 on the density. Both of them are literally the exact same density, but there isn't a metal like that that is both. Troy Ounces gave me a $10 super chat. I appreciate you, Troy Ounces. I never miss a super chat. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. He said, "Happy holidays, you filthy animal." Happy holidays to you as well, Troy Ounces, especially when we see Troy Ounces going up in value. It's nice to see, but I appreciate that, Troy Ounces. Thank you. I mean, I don't know if it's logical to do that, Mister. Mister 1611 said, "I'm surprised people don't build their house frames out of platinum instead of wood." I don't know about that. That's a little bit wild. You're gonna have to be a pretty wealthy individual to build your house frames out of platinum. Um, that's gonna be a selling point in the future. The house's frame is made out of platinum. Let me go through. Hang on here. Let me go back. Go to more of these comments here. Let's keep this live stream. We're at almost 50 minutes here, so I'll keep it going. We're gonna keep it under an hour. This one's gonna be under an hour, just so people can kind of view it later on if they missed the live stream. But I want to get to a few more comments here. But we're gonna. Sometimes I can start rambling, and then all of a sudden it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I've been on here for 4 hours. So we're gonna keep it a little bit mellow this time. Let me see. I know it's a joke, Mister. I'm just messing around. Um, One banker had a platinum toilet. Now that'd be pretty. That'd be more impressive than a gold one, in my opinion. Uh, Silver Staff says, "Do you buy coins?" Of course I do. Also, I help people get actual true value for their items. A lot of people didn't know they had rare stuff until they went to Mineral Exchange, and they're like, "Wait a minute, I had no idea all of my Engelhard silver bars are worth that much money." I had a person that had like a 3 ounce and a 4 ounce Engelhard that didn't know how rare those were and thought they were just silver value items. And it's like, I have something to tell you. The old hustler in me would have made money here, but you can go to Mineral Exchange and look up the price history, and you can actually see how much they go for. Um, but yeah, like a 3 ounce Engelhard, some of them can go for thousands of dollars an ounce, which is insane. So if you check, you can see all that stuff on the website. So the web, not only do I buy coins, but also I help people sell them. So I take consignments. We make 10% on the buyer's premium, and we auction off stuff, and it costs nothing to consign to Mineral Exchange. So that is basically my business model, is helping people get true value for their rarities. Well, it's just the auction business in general. So I own an auction company. So we both buy and do consignments. Buy, sell, and do consignments. Any thoughts on 2.8 million registered ounces added to vaults yesterday? Fake it's hard to know the truth with precious metals because one of the points that's not brought up enough, I think, is, and this is why I think the BRICS nations are going to really, really like adopting gold, because truthfully, nobody knows how much gold the US has. Nobody knows how much gold Russia has. Nobody knows how much gold China has. And they probably like it that way. You know, China and Russia probably like it that way. For all we know, Russia and China have way more gold than the US, but we have no idea. There's no audit. Like, are you going to trust a communist country's auditing? When they say, like, yeah, world, we have this much gold and we're going to consider it as money in the future. Like, no, they're not going to tell anybody. So nobody really knows when it comes to how much is in each individual vault. And when it comes down to the auditing of it all, it's like, can you trust it? I'm not too sure on that. And that's both a negative and a positive. You know, so there's a nice aspect of being a precious metals holder and knowing that there's no ledger around that knows exactly the figures that are out there. But what's nice, and this is why I prefer silver to gold, because you know that industries are going to need it. You know, the electric car companies are going to need silver. The solar panel companies are going to need silver. You know, all of these companies that eat up silver's demand, which is we showed in this video is 50% of it. You know, they're going to have to start paying people that are investors. There's going to be large private investors that eventually they're probably going to start begging for their silver, and the premium for the physical will skyrocket, because even if they keep the price suppressed artificially, they're going to need the physical item to make the product. So I would rather be in the industrial precious metals. That's just how I feel about it personally. I wouldn't trust it. And this is also, I saw recently, I don't want to say the company's name, but everybody can probably figure out what it is. But this digital gold and silver is the most foolish idea I've ever heard of in my life. And a lot of people might not like to hear that, but if you have learned anything, what happened to FTX? Someone just brought up FTX in the comments. Let's talk about FTX for example. What happened with FTX is you would buy Bitcoin or something with FTX, and they would say that you bought Bitcoin, but you really didn't. They just showed you a number on the screen, and behind that facade, which is the number on the screen that you see, which is something we've talked about on this channel quite a bit, there was no custody of the Bitcoin. They didn't own the Bitcoin. They never bought the Bitcoin for you. They were just showing that, yeah, we saw that you put that order in at that time, and we'll give you Bitcoin in the future. Same thing across the board. So they were just showing fake numbers on the screen that when you looked at your little app, which now doesn't work, by the way, if you go to their ftx.com or whatever, it doesn't even work. They're just bankrupt. So that was just a facade. Those numbers on the screen were the facade. So if you think about it this way, let's think about it from like a stock, for example. Say you use a broker house like TD Ameritrade, Scottrade, E-Trade, whatever your broker is for buying a stock. And you say, I buy Tesla stock. And they just show you, yeah, you bought Tesla stock, but they really don't go buy Tesla stock for you. This is a hypothetical. I'm not saying they're actually doing this. I'm just saying it's a hypothetical. They didn't buy it. It shows you on your screen that you own Tesla stock, but they never went and bought it. They just showed it on your screen. So what did you do? You gave them real money for Tesla stock that they got to keep your real money and do stuff with your real money, and then they turned around and didn't buy the Tesla stock with your money. So that's why, ironically, FTX was like, you saw all these YouTubers promoting FTX, and I got to pat myself on the back for this one because I don't do advertisements really on my channel, except for my own business that I own 100% of. No partners at all. I own 100% of it. But what's funny is FTX, the thing that they were talking about was we have the lowest fees of any broker house out there. Yeah, you had the lowest fees because you didn't actually buy the product you were supposed to buy. When someone said they're buying something with FTX, it showed that they bought it, but the FTX didn't actually go and buy it. It just showed you the number on the screen. So why do I talk about that FTX blow up? Because I see the same thing happening with these physical precious metals, holders of the physical precious metals, and then give you a token against it. So who's to say they actually own the real precious metals? And who trusts the auditing of that? So when I got, like, in my email, like, a bunch of times these companies have reached out to me. One specifically has reached out quite a few times, and I continue to bash them over and over and over again. I do not take their money. I can't be bought because I own my own company. I own Mineral Exchange. I can't be bought by these people. So they're trying. I see a lot of places that can be bought because they don't own the business, and they're just making videos out there, and they're going, yeah, blockchain-based gold and silver, great idea. It's like, no, it's not. It's a terrible idea. It's a horrible idea. This is why we're in this problem in the first place. Trusting a custodian is why we got here. We trusted the government to be the custodian of our precious metals, and what do? They steal it. They steal it. They lose it. That's what happens every time you trust a custodian. So don't trust a custodian with your precious metals. Own your physical precious metals. Brought to you by mineralexchange.com. Not a paid advertisement. But no, it blows my mind that people are still talking about that like it's a good idea. Yeah, a blockchain-based gold and silver company. What? Own the real thing. If you don't hold it, you don't own it, period. Uh there is no give there. This isn't like horseshoes or whatever, you know? It's either it is or it isn't. You either own it or you don't. There is no middle ground. Own your physical precious metals. Don't have it in an ETF. Don't have it in some blockchain company or whatever. Have the real physical precious metals. What we are going to start seeing, I bet you these blockchain based gold and silver companies are going to start trying to sell the real thing to entice people to get into their their little scheme that they got going on. That's what I think is going on here, because it's like it's ridiculous. How do you know what they bought the silver for? How do you know what they bought the gold for if they didn't pay a different sub company? So here's a funny way to think about this from a scary way. Let's say, for example, I have a blockchain based gold hypothetical. I would never have a blockchain based gold and silver company. I never advertise a blockchain based gold and silver company other than to completely bash on them. But let's say, give this hypothetical, for example. I get $1 billion to spend on gold and silver, right? Some audience trusts me to give them a token, and I hold $1 billion of capital to go buy physical precious metals with, and then back it with a token, right? I have $1 billion cash to go buy precious metals. Who's to say that I don't have a separate LLC, a separate corporation that I buy those precious metals at artificially overvalued prices is? That's the scheme that not enough people are thinking about. I just see past the smoke and mirrors in life because I can't be bought. So I see past the smoke and mirrors. So if I was in a position to be a scammer in this space, I'd have $1 billion in capital, and I'd overcharge from a separate LLC for precious metals from that separate LLC or that separate corporation. I'd overcharge. If the price of silver was like 23, you could charge $30 an ounce, make a fortune selling it back to that company, and then you see where I'm getting at here? Then this company makes a fortune for selling the silver to the company that is a blockchain-based gold and silver company that bought overvalued precious metals and then stores it in vaults, and then you trust their auditing and all of this? Like, no, I bet you that's where the real juice is made, right there. I bet you that's the juicy cut, right? That from separate LLC to that bank balance, that's the juicy cut, buying overvalued, like buying stuff for a price that it shouldn't be. That's probably a juicy spread right there. Anyway, I can go in. They probably I don't send me emails anymore, because then it gives me ideas, and then I go and I publicly roast you. Just don't send me emails anymore. I don't want to advertise for your companies. But that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt some feelings. Sorry about that. Blockchain based gold and silver companies. You create a box, you pretend the box does something magical, like making all the big banks run it in 30 days. You give this box a value and issue tokens, and people buy the tokens. What happens to the house? You lose all the money. I agree, Ralph. I agree. How do you make a digital pen? All in all, basically what my rant is about is own the physical thing. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody. If you don't own the physical metal, verify that metal yourself or buy it from somebody that has a big reputation, that doesn't want to lose that reputation. Be very careful where you get your precious metals from. Personally, we XRF everything here and guarantee everything here because it's actually X-ray tested. So if you get a box from Mineral Exchange, you know it's been X-ray tested. You know it's verified. So whoever you're dealing with, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else out there, just make sure that you own the real thing and you verify that it's the real thing and that they have a reputation that they don't want to lose. So that's where you got to, that to me is everything. There is no middle ground. It is just you own it or you don't. Either you have the brick on your table or in your own vault or you don't. Don't trust anybody else to have custody of it, period. It just doesn't work that way. That's just how I feel about it. And again, the bigger my company gets, the bigger, my bankroll gets, the less I already can't be bought out, but I just will get more and more strength on my position when I see a bad idea and they say that some bad idea offers me 10 grand or something like that. I'm going to tell them to kick rocks. And then I'm going to go, not only am I going to tell these companies to kick rocks, but then I'm going to turn around and wreck them just because I can't help myself. Like, to me, it just like it It messes with, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me when I see stuff like that. And especially with what's going on with FTX. If anything that you should learn from FTX, it's all over. I didn't make a single FTX video because it's like, it's all over. And it just is like, what, am I going to make another video on FTX? Like, there's so many videos on this situation. But the only comment that I have personally on the FTX situation is don't trust any custodian. Period. I don't care if they're going to say they're a precious metals custodian. I don't care if it's a vault in your own bank or whatever, or the safety deposit box or whatever. Don't trust anybody to custody your assets. Own it yourself. This is probably why my videos don't reach as large of an audience as I would like them to, because I sometimes I spit some real stuff on this channel. Don't trust anyone. Don't trust me. Don't trust, whoever it is to hold your precious metals for you. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Period. Don't trust a custodian. Buy it from a reputable source that has an XRF machine, preferably, because the Veriscans can be fooled sometimes. I should make a video on testing metals. I'm going to do that in the future. But yeah, that's I can't stress that enough. But that is the only takeaway that I have from the FTX situation is just don't trust a custodian. What did they do? They took in the money. They showed you a number on the screen, and they didn't have it. It's really that simple. It wasn't that it was a Ponzi. It was just an outright fraud. Like, just outright fraud altogether. So a Ponzi is a little bit different than this. They just literally took in the money and then didn't actually buy the asset. Well, I guess it is kind of a Ponzi in a sense. So I don't know. Like, sometimes a Ponzi will pay off people in the top and then take in new fresh capital. They were just taking in capital all across the board, running what seemed like a legitimate business that didn't actually own the assets. So this could happen to anything. Anything can do this. Any custodian can do this. When you give somebody else the power, that's power. The more power some entity has, the more likely it is to corrupt. Power always corrupts. The more power that's placed in one place, it always corrupts at some point. So how do you get around that? You be the custodian. Don't trust somebody else with your money. Don't trust a banker. Don't trust some broker house. Own it yourself. And physical precious metals allows people that opportunity to actually be the real custodian of their assets. Somebody said the Bitcoin clock is gone. Good riddance. Gold and silver forever. I honestly was getting a little bit sad looking at it. It was starting to get depressing over there, but it's starting to pull up a little. Where is Bitcoin right now? Bitcoin's at 17,000 right now with Bitcoin. So, I mean, realistically, let's actually go over that real quick. Hey, I appreciate that, Phil. It's possible. What I've realized is, like, sometimes people that don't like me very much, they still watch. They still watch. And so those are the people that don't hit the like button. Or they could hit the dislike button if they'd like. You could always hit the dislike button. But do one of them. Hit something. Hit like, dislike, something, put a comment, anything. Hang on here. I wanted to show the price. One thing with Bitcoin is, yes, it's had a triple. Look at that. Oh my God. The pull down on Bitcoin is pretty intense. But the thing is, though, if you pull back that chart and you look back on the past 5 years, I mean, in 2020, it was down at like 6,000, 5,000. So yeah, on the peak that it was at, max peak was at 70,000. If you bought it 5 years ago, you're still in the green pretty much, unless you got it, in this peak here around the 20. So you're either like break even or in the money if you bought in this period. We just saw it get wild during this period. And what did this FTX blow up really damaged Bitcoin quite a bit. So Sam Bankman-Fried really put a number on Bitcoin. I believe this is the beginning of FTX. So it was actually up to 21,000 and this FTX blow up brought it down to 17. I still have the same stance on Bitcoin. I think it's foolish to be all in, and I think it's foolish to have none of it. I see it as like a 5% position in a decentralized portfolio based on the fact that if you're right, you're going to be really right. And if you're wrong, you can afford to lose it. Like, that's my only position on Bitcoin. I've been the same way with Bitcoin all along. But still, even at 17,000, even after this big pullback, this is one of those times where it's like, if you have none on the balance sheet, I mean, I get nothing out of saying it. I mean, I have no upside in saying that I think Bitcoin is a good investment. I just think that it's a good insurance play. Personally, I view Bitcoin as insurance. Anyway, I don't want to make this video all make it about Bitcoin, but FTX certainly did a number to Bitcoin. That's for sure. We went up to 70 likes. We went up 70 likes. We got over 100 people in here, only 70 likes. letting me down. You're letting me down, audience. You're letting me down. But maybe we can bump up them numbers. I don't know. Brian Carrera Cabrera gave me a super chat for $5. I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you. He said, "What are your thoughts in this community? On the gold-backed currency idea? Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the product? I know there's like a product like that has. This is another. I, the problem is the verification of it. When it comes to it being like those pieces of paper that are gold, it's like the verification of it is the problem. How do you know that it's the exact right weight? How do you know if you're really trusting that company quite a bit? And in the future, I would imagine they start, counterfeiting or something like that. The verification of it is the biggest problem I see. I would rather have a brick of gold. Like I'd rather have a gram of gold than a thin paper of it saying that it's money. You get where I'm getting at? Like I'd rather actually have the gold gram that I could verify myself with my own little, like, a verifying machine is only like $900, $1,000, and you can get even cheaper than that. But like if you have your own verifying wand and all of that, you can just verify that you have a gram of gold there. Where if you have a very thin piece of paper, it's going to be very hard to verify. I would rather just hold a gram of gold. Like really, like I'd rather own a small 1/20th of gold. Ironically, on my website, this actually, I hate to keep look, I know some people don't like me talking about my own business, but support small businesses out there. If you like somebody and you like go support, like say you have a friend that made a pizza shop, don't ask for a discount or don't ask them to stop to like be like, don't talk about your pizza shop. It's like, no, talk more about your pizza shop. Tell me more about it. And how can I give you money for your idea out there? I think people need to start supporting their friends more, support small businesses more. And that's a good thing to do. And too many people, like, they have that mindset of, oh, my friend opened a pizza shop, I should get a discount because it's my friend. It's like, no, what kind of friend, what friends like that? Who needs enemies? You need to go and support your friend. Go down there and buy a bunch of pizza and give them a big tip. That's your friend. That's what you do for your friends. Anyway, so when people overly talk about their business or something like that, I mean, yeah, I do it personally because I'm very passionate about mineral exchange. You know how hard it is to build an auction house? Really hard. It took me like 3-4 years to figure it out. And finally, it's running and it's doing pretty well. But one of the things I was going to talk about real quick is there a cooler way to own fractional gold? When I literally said, like, so when somebody said like gold backs, this is a piece of, these are fractional piece. This is an auction for 5 ounces worth of them, which is insane. So, and it's currently like way under melt. It's at 3,650 right now with like 3 days left. So that's pretty scary. But what's cool about these is they literally denominated them in 1/20th of an ounce. Now, what would you rather have? Something that you can actually verify and show that that's real gold and verify it yourself? Or would you rather have, a thin piece of paper that you can't actually, that won't read on a verifying machine? It's like, that is like the coolest way to own $100 ever. There is no cooler way to own $100 in your pocket than a little 20th gold coin from 1981. That is, and if you read the history of this, it's so cool. It's like the coolest. I'm a big fan of Nick Deek. It's a really, like, he was considered the James Bond of money. Like, click there and it'll show you like a whole background story from like a different website and stuff. But the storyline on these and all the gold standard stuff is super cool because they were trying to make their own new currency. So this is a similar idea to the idea that you were just bringing up with the pieces of paper that are gold. But I would much rather have the 1/20th in my pocket. I'd much rather, this is a perfect $100 bill. These are worth roughly $100. If you add into like they should be worth a little bit more than that when you consider the rarity of them, especially one of the key date ones like this. But it's like, that's a little tiny 1/20th gold coin. That to me is the coolest way to own fractional gold ever. Way cooler than a 10th AGE. Way cooler than, like of a piece of paper. I would much rather have those. So that to me is like the coolest fractional gold ever. I really can't think of a cooler way to own $100 in your pocket. And these are like not even half the price of melt right now. So we'll see what happens. It's scary. It's scary seeing this stuff, but no reserve is no reserve. And so that's, to me, is like, that is the coolest way to own fractional gold. That is like owning it, true custody of it. Like right now I have custody of those. Someone buys it and then they have custody of it. And then my reputation is on the line for providing true, accurate product. So it's like, that to me is, once you have true custody of it, that's what matters. And I would much rather have it in its full form like that. I'd rather have it as a little coin. This is a little tiny 20th of a gold coin right here. So it's like super, super small. It looks big because of the photos, but it's a tiny little 1/20th gold coin that's worth about $100 in melt value. I would rather have that personally. And the premium's way less, way less. I believe the currency one is like super expensive. So all across the board, I'd rather have that. Keep in mind, that's a consignment. We make our cut for being an auctioneer, but we don't actually own these. These are just consignments in. But then you got like this is another lot of an ounce worth of them. So this is 20 of these equals an ounce. So 20 of those equals an ounce of gold. They're all 1/20th. So obviously a 20 of them is a troy ounce worth of gold. And they're like little tiny fractional gold pieces. These are the ones from 1980. The other ones were from 1981. I would much rather own that personally. That's how I feel about it. But if you go back, these ones are the 1/10ths. So these are a 10th piece. So these are worth, roughly like $200 in melt value. So this is how I think people should own gold, is things like this. Fractional gold pieces is way better, and you can actually test it yourself when you have a fractional gold piece. So you can't test a piece of paper. You can actually test the real thing, though. So it's like there's no need for it, in my opinion. I think that we can easily make – there already is, obviously. These are back from the 80s. These are vintage pieces, but that's how I'd rather own – if you want to own a lot of gold, I'd rather own a 6-ounce piece of gold, or a 10-ounce platinum bar or whatever. Like this, to me, is what I'd like to hold. This is an ounce of platinum from the same company, an ounce of gold from the same company, half ounce, quarter ounce. That's just how I feel about it personally. What's crazy, you see like the premium on a MS70 AGE. I would much rather have the fractional Nick Deek pieces. Like I would much rather have the fractional gold pieces that are going for like a really fair price versus paying $260 for a 10th. But people like those for some reason. I would much rather have these. That's just myself. But anyway, that's how I feel. When someone just brought up, the idea of like gold-based currencies. That to me is the best possible way to own gold, is like owning the real thing in a fractional form or holding like a big bar of it. That's the best way to do it. Rolf, I actually auctioned on the website. Hang on, I could show. This is actually a super cool piece. Hang on. I had a 5-ounce gold standard piece. What did that auction for? Look, I'm using my search feature on here. Hang on. Put me back. Someone just said, like, I'd take a kilo one of those. I actually had a 5-ounce one of them in the original box like that. Hang on. That's what's so cool about the search features. You can I just searched gold standard 5-ounce to show this on the website, and you can actually see something. We auctioned this back on the 28th of August for $9,000. So this at the final price was a little bit under $10,000 for this, and I think it's so cool for that. That is such a cool piece. It's the only one of these I've ever seen with the original box from 1980. And they actually made a 5-ounce version. So we've auctioned that. Not quite a kilo, but 5 ounces is pretty crazy. Super, super cool. Hang on. Let me go back. Jerry loves freedom and decentralized assets. How are you, Jerry? Great dude. If you're not subscribed to Jerry, go subscribe to Jerry. I like Jerry quite a bit. I'm subscribed to Jerry. Put it that way. Appreciate you, Jerry. He gave me a $5 super chat and said, what are your thoughts on the Balenciaga scandal? If you don't want to comment, I understand. I appreciate you. Rob Sultan for president 2032. You know what? I'm starting to take it. The more you say it and you put that in the universe, Jerry, the more I'm starting to think, maybe I should run for president someday. I'd do things a lot different if I was running for president. The first thing I would do is actually, I try to not comment on politics too much because I think people can already read where I stand. I'm a libertarian to the core. I believe in a smaller government, period, across the board. So I'm more liberal than a liberal, and I'm more conservative than conservative. I'm like further on the spectrum on both ends because I just believe in a small government. But that whole scandal when it comes to Balenciaga and all of that, it's I feel like these companies do extremely weird things to get attention. I really look at us talking about it right now. We fell for it, right? They do extremely weird things to get attention so people talk about them, and then they're going to do something to get away from that or whatever because people tend to have shorter attention spans. So it's like I think they're abusing it in a sense. They do weird, very, very weird things on purpose so that people talk about them. That's what I think. In regards to the fallout with individuals and whatnot, I don't know. I try to not comment on these things too much, but I mean, YouTube doesn't really even show my content anyway because people won't hit that like button. So maybe I should just talk about this stuff. Maybe I should go full. fall crazy. You just start talking about all the craziest stuff. But that's kind of how I feel. Uh, so Rolf, I don't know if I'd take Bankman Fried as the VP, man. I don't know if he's that wouldn't be my first choice, Rolf. I don't know what you think of me, man, but I don't know about that. Someone put in the comment. Sultan Bankman Fried. I would put him in jail. I'll tell you that much. No pardon. No pardon. Full jail time. Max sentence terms. That's what I'd do to Bankman Fried personally. I would be like, oh, you want me to pardon your buddy over there? Solitary confinement for him. Pardon. Psh. I'd put him in solitary in Guantanamo. That's what I would do. That's why I mean, like, I would be like so impossible to be bought out. That's why I'm building stuff right now. Like the thing is, it's like when it comes to mineral exchange and it comes to the things that I'm building, there was a period in time where I was telling people like, hey, I'm building a website and I'm working on it. And people are like, oh yeah, you're all talk. You're building it. It's like, well, what now? Website's done over like pretty close to $1 million in revenue. So I mean, it's people bash your ideas until they become a reality. But the reason why I'm working so hard to build stuff right now is because look at like Elon Musk, for example. Him buying Twitter was such a savage move and so genius when you think about it. But the reason he was able to do that is because he was in a position of power. So when people say like, "Oh, money doesn't buy happiness," no, money buys power. It's a very great tool to have. And if you're a good person and you have a lot of power, that's a good place to be. So what can you do right now? I believe in getting the money, going after building companies, getting after the bag, and then after that, you can start doing things like what Elon Musk just did. That's, I mean, if I had that kind of capability, if I had the kind of money Elon Musk has, whew, I can't say like he's doing everything pretty solid. Like you got to be pretty. I'm a fanboy of Elon. I can't like the stuff he's doing right now is insane. So I think that's like it's a good thing that that guy has that much money, because the only thing I'm worried about is like you're playing with people that don't like to be played with, Elon. I hope you got good, you watch your six, Um, like Silver Staff says, the truth ain't the truth no more. The truth is what you can make someone believe. Social media dictates a lot of people's thoughts because they don't think they are. I agree. Like, know what's a funny new trend is like showing that people are NPCs or whatever it is. Like when you just go around and like just start saying crazy stuff and people just go along with it. They've actually done tests like this where like they had a bunch of people in a room and they told one person to stand up and sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. And then before you know it, a room of like 30 people, they all start standing up and sitting down. They don't know why, just one person was doing it and they just fall under that herd mentality. I figured out, I traced back like what changed me as a person when I was growing up. I think I never really liked someone having power over me. I think I had a problem with authority my whole life. I was always kind of that way. But back in high school, I was such a bad student and I would make fun of so many professors in high school that I forgot about this actually until recently. And then someone reminded me that I went to school with was like, remember when you did homeschool? They kicked me out of school and made me do independent studies. I forgot that even happened to me. That's like such a random thing that happened. But I was literally out of high school for like 3 years doing independent studies. And they would give me like a packet of work to do every week. And I'd finish it in like an hour or whatever. And then I would just be done and I could do whatever I want all week. And I think that's when I broke free from like the herd mentality, was in that 3 year period when everybody else was, getting indoctrinated and going to school. I was like, oh, I finished my packet of work in an hour. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to go skateboard. Like, I don't know. I'm going to go do something with my life right now. And that's what kind of like changed it. I remember like feeling like I wasn't part of the pack anymore when that happened. So I think that it's the school system. I think the school system damages kids. And it's like designed that way or something. Anyway, that's kind of where it all happened with me personally. But yeah, this got off on a tangent from Jerry's super chat. I appreciate you, Jerry. And my comment on that whole scandal thing is like they want attention. They want attention, and we're falling for it, and that's why. 11 likes to one. Phil. I appreciate you, Phil. Thank you. Means a lot to me, Phil. Phil T in the house. You give away that brick when we do, right, Rob? I don't know about that. This is a pretty cool brick. The last one of these, is at auction for quite a bit of money. So this is a pretty. I mean, it's a brick from the Rothschild family from 1935. Like that's I'm going to post a picture of this. If you're not following me, by the way, to the 106 people in here that won't hit the like button, there's clearly 16 of you that will not hit the like button for some reason. At least hit the dislike. The 16 of you that won't hit the like, just hit the dislike then. Just hit something. Hit a button. Get these videos out there, please. Hit something. We're at 90 likes, but we got 106 of you in here, so at least hit the dislike or something. But I will post a picture. People asking about this Rothschild. This is actually an authentic Rothschild bar from 1935. I'll post a picture on this later on my Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram, you can watch me doing my cheesy skateboarding videos and stuff so you can know the mutt world that I came from. I'm still a little street mutt at heart. You can give me a Rolex. You can give me some money. I'm still the street mutt that can't be bought out because that's just where I come from. But yeah, I post some skate videos and stuff like that on my Instagram and some pictures of this. Like, these are all the bars that are being auctioned on the website this week. I usually give heads up. And in the story, I post, like, right now before I went live, because YouTube doesn't send notifications sometimes, I always put in my story, like, hey, going live in 20 minutes, going live in 30 minutes, dropping a video on YouTube here. I always give the notifications here in my story on Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram, help me get over 10K on Instagram. We're growing up. We're growing there. So that's where I post a lot of this stuff that I hold and whatnot, and a little bit more of my personal life and stuff there. So if you want to see all that, go to my Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram. But I will post a picture of this Rothschild bar either tomorrow or later on next week. But I'll post a picture there as well. But hang on, let me go back. Let me see. Someone says, I follow Rob on Instagram if that counts. I appreciate you, Mr. 1611 means a lot to me. Thank you. And Phil, I appreciate you being my mascot tonight. Appreciate you, Phil. Rolf says, Sam will end up in a mansion eating caviar and drinking champagne. That's American justice. He was donating to the right people. I can say that much. I don't know. With that situation, it's pretty wild to me that he's willing to go and do these interviews in the midst of it all. Like, could you imagine if Bernie Madoff, like in the midst of Bernie Madoff, that he went out and started doing like hour-long interviews and like talking with people after like, it's pretty, if you think about it, it's like, got some balls, guy. Like, what? You're going out and doing interviews right now? Like, that's insane. Anyway, yeah, it's a totally weird situation. The only thing that I can logically think about with him is that I honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea, because to me it seems like there should be jail time involved. He should do time in jail. What's the most crazy part is the guy's parents are lawyers, so he comes from like a ritzy lawyer family, and he's doing this kind of stuff. That's why it goes, more street mutts like me need to have more power. I'll tell you, if you're out there and you're working in the hedges over there, or whatever, it's like more people that actually had a hard upbringing, they need to be in position of powers. Because if you don't have the people that have the worst hands dealt to them, and there's people with way worse hands dealt to them than I had growing up, they usually turn out to be the best people, because they remember it. They remember what it was like to be homeless or have not enough money to pay for food or whatever it is. These kids that are super well off and come from their little glamorous houses with their fancy parents and everything. He's got this Sam Bankman-Fried character has two parents that are both there, both lawyers, both very well off. He grew up in a glamour-based home in the suburbs or whatever, and here he is taking advantage of a bunch of people. It's like, this guy, throw the book at him. Throw the book at him. If I was in a position of power, I'd be like, throw the book at him, put him in solitary confinement, no restitution. That would be the biggest thing. I think that's what you call it, restitution, right? No ability for his ritzy parents to give him money while he's in there. No TVs, no money from your parents. All money that you have to your name has to go to paying back the people that you've lost money to. You're not allowed the tennis court treatment like Jordan Belfort. You're not allowed the fancy glamour life. You sit in solitary confinement with you and your brain pills or whatever that you were taking. Like, that's where he needs to go. He needs to go straight into solitary, and we need to throw the book at people like that. People like that don't deserve any leeway at all. That's just my personal opinion on it. And it's always the cookie cutter, You know, the soft individuals from their soft, nice little comfortable family and all of that. You know, like that. It's always people like that that take advantage of other people because they got it so well off growing up that they just feel like they're entitled to those kind of things. Those are the entitled kids. It's like one of the worst people in the like one of the worst possible people in the world. Um, anyway, restitution means so I did have it right. Zilla had it right. Yeah, right. They have to do he has to do restitution, so he gets no money in his. Sean, you might be right about that. You might be right about that, Sean. I mean, it does make sense. Like if Bitcoin, the thing is, like just like I say, I don't want to get too into like a Bitcoin conversation, but if Bitcoin gets more and more power, it's a good thing for precious metals. Actually, this is something that I'll end the video on. I'll end the video on this because this is something like a lot of people in precious metals don't understand this, and a lot of people in Bitcoin don't understand this. When we say crypto, to me, it's only Bitcoin. I don't believe in Ethereum. I don't like any of the other tokens or whatever. I only believe in Bitcoin because of the network that backs it. It has a huge network of nodes around the world backing the system, and it's way easier to back up that network and that blockchain. But I won't get into the details and of why I only believe in Bitcoin. But with Bitcoin, what people don't understand is so if Bitcoin succeeds, it would crash the price of fiat currencies around the world, right? Because you'd have a reserve asset that all the fiat currencies can get sucked up into. What would happen to precious metals in that scenario? They would skyrocket. The fiat currencies would collapse, Bitcoin would succeed, and metals would skyrocket. Now let's flip it the other way. If precious metals succeed and everybody starts adopting a gold standard, the price of fiat collapses. What happens when the price of fiat collapses? Metals skyrocket and Bitcoin would skyrocket. So they both do the same thing. They're both an anti-fiat bet. They're a hedge against fiat currency. It's like buying puts against the dollar, literally. If you have Bitcoin or if you have precious metals, it is literally like buying puts against the dollar. So it's the same trade, really. Personally, I would much rather have the physical precious metals, but that's why I have a little bit of Bitcoin on my balance sheet because of that scenario. It's like, and somebody said, like, what if it was a ploy to drop the price? What if it was a ploy to drop the price of Bitcoin? I can tell you this much: if I was on Team Fiat, I would love what just happened with FTX. Let's just put it that way. If I was Team Fiat currency, I would be like hyped about what happened with FTX. So there is some merit to that. I mean, anyway, some people are saying like there's some crazy comments and stuff. All the comments are open in my videos. I have no moderation in my videos. So there's gonna be some really good information in the comments, but I don't moderate the comments here. Wow, I said I was gonna do an hour-long video and we ended up ranting another 30 minutes past the hour. That's just what I do. That's what I do sometimes. I wanted to make an hour video and then it turns into an hour and 30-minute video. But on that note, we will end this video. I just wanted to talk about silver, and then we end up talking about all kinds of stuff in these videos towards the end. But at the beginning of this video, I think that there is a lot of really good information on what happened with silver and why it happened and all of that. Thank you all so much for being a subscriber on my channel. I really appreciate you all. Even the ones when we had 111 people in here, even the ones that won't hit the like or the dislike. Even you, I appreciate you as well. Even though you sit there and you watch and go, yeah, I'm not going to hit the like button. I don't want to push his videos out to more people. Even you, I appreciate you for being here because you're watching and that's going to help with the algorithm. So even if you don't hit the like button, still watch all the way through. You helped with the anyway. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for being a subscriber. Follow me on the IG. Do all of that. I'm out. I will see you at the next video. I'm trying to be better about doing these every single Friday, at least doing the live stream once a week, but I will be posting a lot more videos on the channel. I got to start making, shorter videos and putting out 10-minute videos on the channel. Right as I'm ending the video, the Sask Farmer gave me a super chat for $27.99. Appreciate you, Sask Farmer. That means a lot. Thank you, man. But yeah, I always try to do these live streams for like an hour, and we end up going for like 2 hours, an hour, 30 minutes, whatever it is. But if you could hit the like button while we're closing out here, would appreciate it. But thanks again for watching. I'll see you at the next video. Signing out.